So, welcome everybody and good morning. Thank you for everybody being here. Um, and of course, I have my notes over here, so I apologize. Oh, thanks for taking the time to join us today. I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Marsha Vacca, who comes to us with 40 plus years of experience in this industry, which is amazing to me, working with older adults and their families, and has seen a very wide range of challenges and struggles and, all the things. By the end of today's conversation, you'll leave with feeling more confident, less overwhelmed, about supporting aging loved ones, and with a clear sense of what truly matters next. We'll begin with questions, and we'll kind of like a little interview. Here's some of Marsha's, expertise and experience and stuff she'll be sharing with us. So if you have any questions, please write them down. And then the last 30 minutes of the call, we will go into a Q&A session. So with that, I'm honored to welcome Marsha. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing these last 40 years?
Yeah, taking care of lots of people. Yeah. Thanks, Anna. It's good to be here. So good to be able to join all of you and to take some time. I appreciate Anna and her work that she's doing through her community, Grandparents Corner. And that's really how I met Anna, how we connected. And I'm just loving Grandparents Corner. And then she came into my community, the Family Care Compass. And so we've been talking a lot back and forth and getting to know each other. But just briefly, because this isn't about me, this is really about you and the issues or concerns or questions that you have regarding what it's like to be a family caregiver. And often for many of us, we're part of that sandwich generation where we still have, children at home, even if they're just college age kids. But at the same hand, we've got aging loved ones, whether it's our parents, our grandparents, an aunt, auntie, or uncle, whatever. And you're sort of caught in that time loop of how do you meet everybody's issues and demands. So
Mhm.
my background is actually in healthcare to begin with. Medicine has always been my love. And I also got very involved in public policy work and designing and developing programs for a number of different agencies and groups that I've worked with over time. So after spending a number of years working directly in healthcare, doing some legislative advocacy work and program design, I went out on my own, started my own company, Vacca Associates, and began doing private case management work. And as one nurse once told me, Marsh, you're not the typical case manager. You're actually doing life navigator kind of work. And I said, oh, okay. Because people ask me and I say it's soup to nuts. If the dog needs food and watering, then we'll get the dog fed and watered. If the house needs cleaning, we'll figure that out as well. If the bills need paying, yep, we'll get the bills paid. If you need to get to the doctor appointment, have med trays filled, have difficult conversations either with other family members or friends, whatever it is. I mean, I've helped to sell houses, not myself, I'm not a realtor, but I put a team together. So my great belief is we need a team, especially
Mhm.
as we approach our later years. And I'm sorry, life has become very complex. I wish it wasn't. And it does take a team of trusted, you know, advisors and people to help you, through some of those issues. So it is very much so soup to nuts, soup to nuts. The other side of my life, which I share, I'm also a youth pastor by background. Done that as well for decades. And I always say I've been so blessed to be able to play with those 15-year-olds as well as my 85-year-olds. And personally, I don't think the 15-year-olds are that different than the 85-year-olds. So I've been having lots of fun. Otherwise, after 40 plus years, I would have retired, but none of my clients let me retire.
There you go. I can see why. I can definitely see why. So yeah, I mean, you're just a wealth of knowledge and stuff like that. I love it. I'm glad that we met. I'm glad that we were able to
Me
connect
too.
and stuff, and hopefully, we'll see where this goes. Let's start with a couple of questions that I kind of came up with. The first one, you were talking about the sandwich generation. And I know that there's so many of us in that generation, and the emotional reality is it's hard because we do try and, you know, meet everybody's needs.
Yeah.
And often we don't meet our own needs. So, for people who are reaching that stage, what are the earliest signs that grandparents and adult children should maybe pay attention to, or should be, just kind of aware of before things get too bad? Like, what is the early type signs, generally
Right.
speaking?
Yeah, right. That's a real common question, so I'm glad you asked it. It is so hard because every situation is unique. Every
Mhm.
family is unique. Every individual is unique. And what might be an early warning sign for one family may not cause any concern, for another family. In fact, as an example, I was invited in to work with one mom. She
Mhm.
was in her 70s, late 70s, and I sat with her and we chatted, delightful woman. And I had to go back to the adult children and I said, wow, I really think mom's maybe in the throes of early memory loss, short-term memory loss. And she just doesn't seem to be able to connect dots. She can't seem to remember from one moment to another. And I gave him some examples of questions I had asked her and what we had talked about. And the one child said, "Oh my gosh, mom's been like that since I was 13 years old. It's nothing new." You know, so and I share that example only because things might appear to be one way
Mhm.
and cause of concern, and yet that's not really the issue that's causing the concern. Sometimes it's more like, "Hey, mom let me know she fell the other day,
Mhm.
in the kitchen. Mom's never fallen before,
Yeah.
and suddenly she's telling me she fell, but it's no big deal. She's fine. She's fine.
Right.
Just give it time. She's fine."
Yeah.
So oftentimes, I think some of the earlier signs are, do you see any really physical signs that would make them vulnerable in terms of safety living in their existing current environment? So it's watching the physical signs. Are they having falls?
Mhm.
Uh, are they injuring themselves sort of in weird, never before seen ways? And they're brushing it off. They're acting like it's no big deal.
Mhm.
And that's okay. You don't want to be an alarmist, but be watching those physical signs. Some of the other signs that can begin to speak to something going on is more, confusion about events, activities, names of family members, grandkids, things that they never would have been confused about in the past.
Okay.
One quick sign too is that all of a sudden, if they're trying to say write out a check,
Mhm.
because a lot of my existing clients and clients I've had, they're still doing checks. They like those checks.
Yes.
Doggone, they like those checks. But it can also be a helpful sign that all of a sudden, if you look at their checkbook, if they, offer up the opportunity to look at their checkbook or help them at all, and
Mhm.
you realize they've forgotten how to write a check out, not just fill in the numbers, but
Yeah.
actually write that check out.
Okay.
That can be an early sign.
Okay.
And all of those things, you have to, number one, don't panic.
Mhm.
Don't panic. It could be something very simple, like they haven't been sleeping and they really need the sleep because sleep helps our brains to reset.
Right.
Or they might have gone to the doctor and they had a change in prescription. And you may or may not be aware of that change in prescription, nor may you be aware of what could be some of the side effects of the new medication.
Right.
So it's always like at the initial point, you want to be watching,
Hmm.
you want to be spending enough time that you can sort of note things over, say, 30 or 45 days. And if anything becomes a real question mark in your mind,
Hmm.
I often say, long before the crisis hits, get to know their closest friends, get to know their neighbors. Who do they interact with on a regular basis? And if you do have enough of a concern, you're not trying to go behind their back, but you're going to sort of go behind their back and at least say, "Hey, I'm seeing this in mom or in dad.
Hmm.
Do you see this, or is this just me being overly concerned?"
Right. Right.
Yeah, because they can provide a lot of great input that you don't have because they see your parents or grandparents in a totally different way because they're neighbors, they're friends, they're peer, they're part of their peer group. And that input can be really valuable to gather that data along with the information that you're gathering and what you're seeing.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Yes to all of that. It's it's interesting because when you mentioned their friends and stuff, I've never thought about it like that because of course as a loved one, we do probably maybe read too much into it, and hit that kind of panic mode,
Yeah.
because it's just not who, they're just
Right,
aging. They're just
right,
aging. So
right.
interesting. Very, very good.
And Anna, can I add at one point too, they're aging, yes,
Mhm,
but we have grown up in a culture that has us sort of, particularly in the medical industry,
mhm.
just sort of going, oh, you're just not as young as you used to be. That's aging, right? And
Right.
it's like, no, 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 no. We need to stop that kind of thought pattern
Yeah.
because I have worked with people who have been in their mid 90s who
Mhm.
can run circles
Right.
around me. Now, granted, we do know that while we have many more people within our communities that are living into their mid 90s and into, early 100s, that number in the population is growing. And we need to make sure, particularly when we're dealing with someone, say at 65 or 75, even 85, that we're not coming to them with the attitude of brushing it off because they're just a little bit older,
Right.
right?
Right.
And we can't allow their providers of healthcare in particular to brush it off to age. Nothing magical
Yeah.
about just passing a birthday, having an extra candle on the cake,
Mhm.
and suddenly you're loony.
Right.
You
Right.
know, that's a very non-professional term, but you know, just because there's an extra candle on the birthday cake does
Right.
not mean you're losing your marbles.
Right. Right.
There's a reason behind it.
Oh,
There is a reason,
yeah.
and you need to find healthcare workers who are willing to dig in and help find the reason
Right.
and then appropriate treatments.
Okay. Yeah, that's being an advocate for them, I know is
Amen.
is huge, especially
Yep.
these days.
Yep.
Um, that's okay. That's a lot to take in. I just kind of
Yeah.
needed to simmer on
Yeah.
it for a minute. Um, let's see. What what boundaries or mindset shift make the biggest difference for grandparents, caring for their aging parents while still wanting to or needing to um, stay connected with their grandkids. So they're, talk about a sandwich. We've got little grandkids who maybe, under 10, and then we've got aging parents heading into their 90s. So how does one wrap their whole head around that in
Right.
a few, in a few words?
Yeah, in a few words. Well, I don't know. No.
Okay.
Let's see, was that a few words? Yeah. No, it is this sandwich generation. I've been in the field since the late 70s, early 80s. And the whole concept of a sandwich generation has been something that's been researched for decades. It's not a new occurrence, actually. It's just that within our culture today, because families are so geographically separated, which is very different than, say, 50, 60 years ago when everyone was still more of a small town, agribusiness based kind of environment.
Right.
Or even if you were in an urban setting, you didn't move very far,
Right.
even in that urban setting, right? So it was much easier, even though you knew that you were having, the youngins come up that you wanted to play with, spend time with, be able to really impact their lives, inspire them, encourage them, and support them. Then at the same time, you had this older family member over here who needed more time, more attention. And when you're geographically close, it's so much easier
Mhm.
to net those things together. I think one of the things that I encourage my families to do is not to allow the generations to become separated. The 85-year-old needs that 5-year-old. Yes, it can be draining and exhausting at
Mhm.
times for the 85-year-old. Part of it's just their personality. They've never done well with a lot of chaos or confusion of a 5-year-old running around screaming and throwing toys here and there.
Right. Right.
So you have to be sensitive to that.
Mhm.
But way too often, we have separated the generations and forgotten that the 5-year-old needs the 85-year-old, and the 85-year-old needs the 5-year-old.
Okay. Yeah.
That's part of the reason that's part of the legacy of
Mhm.
the 85-year-old. And we want to encourage that as families, not, get it too separated. Now, I keep saying that, but I also, I'm at the same time going, wow, we live 3,000 miles apart. How are we really going to do that?
Yeah.
Right. So, um, I think when it really comes time for you as a member of the sandwich generation, and let me define that a little bit more. Basically, the sandwich generation now can go anywhere from about whew, 35 to 75. It's a huge gap now because people have waited longer to get married. They're waiting later to have children.
Mhm.
Um, and then we're seeing longer life,
Right.
longer longevity. So you have this huge age span of people like you who support grandparents. I'm a grandparent.
Mhm.
Now I'm older. I'm older. My parents, though, lived until almost 94 years of age. And they had great grandchildren as well as grandchildren. And
Mhm.
I'll tell you, the thing that put a sparkle in their eye and a lift in their, walk
Yes.
was being around those grandkids, whether they were the 20 something grandkids
Mhm.
or the 3-year-old grandkids. So, being the one sort of caught in the middle, back to your initial question about how do you balance? Because
Mhm.
it's a balance act, right? That's really what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, number one, if there are other siblings or other family members who can come alongside you, and again, you form a team. You form a support team. Now, I recognize the fact that within siblings and family groups, there's lots of past history. They may not always get along really well. They didn't get along great in those past years.
Right.
Why do we think they're going to get along great now that they got an older, aging loved one to worry about, right? Yeah, doesn't happen, right? All those past issues begin to show back up oftentimes when the group has to come together and concern themselves with the needs of an aging loved one. But as much as possible, try to get that team, that support team around you. If you're distant from your siblings and you're in different places, well, thank goodness for Zoom. We've all learned now since what, 2019, 2020, how to live on Zoom. And Zoom calls can be really helpful and effective to get all the family members together who feel like they need to have some input. And you'd be surprised. You might have an aunt or an uncle of your parent who's living and they are wanting to be involved. They want to be part of the conversation. And again, I always remind people that aunt or uncle, because they're a sibling, a peer, basically, of your aging loved one, they're going to have different input. They're going to have different perspective. And that it might become really important to you. If you're going to be the primary caregiver and you're the one stuck in the middle,
Yeah.
and you've got 20 somethings still around or even teenagers still around, and suddenly you've got this over here. So I always say, pull your own support team together, whoever is going to be part of your support team. And then you've got to have conversations with your kiddos so they understand why you're sort of being pulled in different directions. And here's the cool part. Ask them how they want to help. What do they feel they can bring to the table? I mean, oftentimes we sort of gloss over,
Yes.
even with the 5-year-old, when
Right.
we say, hey, grandma needs a little more loving. How do you think you can give grandma a little more love
Oh, that's
and a
so
little
great.
more help?
Yeah.
And even sitting down, I mean, I'm a grandma, even sitting down and having that 5-year-old, 8-year-old, whatever, make a card, draw a picture, write a story, help them actually talk about that grandma or grandpa and tell their own story about what grandma or grandpa has meant to them. Can they remember a special time? Did they go to the ice cream shop? Did they go to McDonald's? Did they go to the zoo? Did they go to the beach? And actually put a little storybook together and give that to the 85-year-old, have the 5-year-old present that to the grandma or grandpa. And yes, does that take time? Yes, it does. Now, let's get back to brass tacks in the sense of you've got these young people who need time and support and activities are going on. You want to be there. And then you've got an aging loved one. Well, they need the doctor appointment. They need to get the blood work done, whatever it might be. The housework needs to get done. And their housekeeper walked away and they don't have a housekeeper anymore. Yes.
It's a lot. It's a
It's a
lot.
lot. So again, I have always found that if you pull your support team together, so you know who you can immediately call and pull them in. Pull them in.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to ask. Because you're going to find yourself split. And there are going to be conflicts in terms of times and schedules, etc. And you might very well have to sit down and prioritize, right? Got to prioritize. There are times that your aging loved one, you just got to prioritize it. So you're going to have to find the babysitter, or you're going to ask the teenager to babysit the younger family member. I mean, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So you have to prioritize, and then you have to keep communication going, because I can tell you that your parent or grandparent, the last thing they want to do is be what? I know you've heard this word. They don't want to be a burden. They don't want to be a burden.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. And so they won't always be totally open with you about what their needs are or that they
I
need,
hear that.
yeah, et cetera, et cetera. I'm a great believer too these days because of everyone's life and people are working. They're just not staying home taking care of the kids and ready to pop into action if mom calls, right? We're working.
Mhm.
And so I love bringing any technology to the playing field that you can bring. Uber has become one of my best friends with even some of my clients.
Yeah.
If I get stuck and I've got multiple demands on clients, because basically in my work, it's like I have 10 sets of parents in my life, 10 sets of parents. You're only dealing with maybe two
Yeah,
max, right?
exactly.
Spouses and yours. I have 10.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and then and there are conflicts with appointments, meeting times, etc. So my Uber account gets used a lot. Just to have someone there at the door to take them. And then oftentimes, if I can get them there, I
Mhm.
can go deal with this here. And then once I'm done over here, then I can go pick them up if
Okay,
need be.
great.
So I think in prioritizing, if there's a doctor appointment and your loved one really does need someone there to listen,
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
hear what the doctor's saying, then those I think have to become priority. If a person really does have some medical needs and conditions
Yeah.
that you're trying to help with, it's real important to be part of those conversations. So I would say that has to somewhat become a priority.
Okay.
And then lastly,
Hmm.
quiet, but lastly, even though our loved ones don't want to be a burden, how do you think we can help them not feel like a burden? We include them. We include them. That is one thing we probably haven't actually said yet, quite
In the
yet.
discussions.
They're part of the team. They're
Yeah.
part of the team. I mean, you can't be helping them and then keeping them out of the loop of decision making and who's going to be helping them do X, Y, Z,
Mhm.
uh, and who will help them do A, B, C. I mean, you need to keep them in the loop, and you need to ask their input, their insight, their opinion. I often tell loved ones, is your mom or dad older than you? They sort of look at me like, well, yeah. I mean,
I think
duh.
so.
Yeah, yeah. What do we do? Just hire the crazy lady. And I always say, well, guess what? They've been an adult a lot longer than you.
Hmm. Hmm.
So unless they really have significant memory loss issues, include them. Don't, it's their lives.
Right.
It's their
Right.
lives. And don't act like you're the bulldozer coming in, taking over. You know better than they know.
Right.
Potentially, no, you don't. No,
Right.
you don't.
Right.
And so if you can include them and really put forth that mindset so and attitude so they understand we're just here wanting to make life move smooth for all of us, young or old. We don't care. We want you to be able to get to Johnny's, school performance. So we're just here trying to make sure we get you first over here. So then we can get you to Johnny's school activity because he really wants you there.
Right.
So,
Right.
you again, we don't set our loved ones, the older they get, we don't set them aside any more than necessary. It's horrible. You want to see your loved one go downhill? Set them aside, ignore them, don't involve them, don't really spend time with them. Uh, yeah, they will become very vulnerable physically as well as mentally because the mind-body connection is much stronger than what I think at times we have sort of viewed it. So anyway, I'll be quiet now.
So no, that's no, that's amazing. And what comes to mind is so your comment earlier about your 85-year-olds and your 15-year-olds. So
Yeah.
in this context, including them also gets their buy-in because
Yeah.
they're part of the process and the solution,
Right.
which is what we do with our kids,
Right.
make
Right.
them feel like it was their idea.
Bingo.
Okay. That's really valuable because I know even just from my limited experience, my parents are in the early 80s, and still, doing really well,
Yeah.
fortunately. But when they do need help, if I think back, I probably go in and take over, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
I will be sure and partner with them more
Yeah.
than take over.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the resistance level
Amen.
will go down.
Amen. You'll still hear them talk about not wanting to be a burden, everything's
Right.
okay, don't worry about them, all that kind of stuff. And I think at times what you have to say to parents and grandparents, again, with a true smile on your face that shows up in your eyes,
Yes.
right? I'm not asking you not to be sincere and honest because trust me, they will know if you're not being sincere and honest. Okay? Trust me.
Yes.
Just like our
Still.
kids do, just like our teenagers do. Um, but you really, I think sometimes we go into these conversations so serious that it's like they look at our faces and then the first words of our mouth and they're sitting there going, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my
Right.
gosh." So
Right.
they immediately react,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
not necessarily in the way you want them to. So I always tell everybody, just go in and sort of be, hey, you know what? I really want you to be able to be present at graduation or this birthday party or whatever. And, I realize with your cane, with your walker, I just want to make sure it's working.
Yeah.
How can I help you?
Right.
How can I help you kind of thing versus here's what I've done. I think with your walker, we need to do this. And I think we need to put the wheelchair in the car just in case, because, I
Right.
mean, it's like you've taken all the decision making away from them.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I'll be honest with you, my 93-year-old mother, if she felt any of us three girls were taking away her decision making,
Right.
it was like, OMG. Okay, mom, I got it. So I mean, it's just
Yeah.
remembering they're the adult.
Hmm.
They've been an adult a lot longer than you.
Hmm.
Their role as parent doesn't go away just because they're getting older.
Right.
So they view themselves as your parent.
Still. Yeah.
So where do they see you? Do you know what research has shown? And I haven't checked it, but past research,
As
uh,
that 5-year-old still?
10, 10
10.
years
Oh,
old, 10 to 12 years of age,
okay.
our parents get us stuck,
Hmm.
at that level. That's a statistical,
Yeah. Yeah.
number. 10 to 12 years of age is where they get us stuck. So when they push back against some of our decision making,
Yeah.
it's like, they may or may not be viewing us as an adult,
Right. Right.
so they're going to push back.
Yeah.
But here's the other side of the coin. You're a kid. Once a kid, always a kid.
All right.
So guess what? You view your parents, they promised to always be there for me.
Hmm.
They were always the provider, protector. They met this need, that need, whatever need, and all of a sudden you're looking at them, seeing them begin to decline. And guess what that triggers inside you as a kid? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to be there anymore. They're not going to be able to, it's like,
Yeah.
and when we go into those kind of very because it's a gut reaction, right? It's
Hmm.
not intellectual. It's
Hmm.
not up here. It's pure gut.
Hmm.
And when we get into those gut level reactions to things, that's where fear and anxiety and worry and stress and being overwhelmed, feeling overwhelmed,
Yeah.
even though you may not be overwhelmed, but
Yeah.
you're feeling overwhelmed because you're reacting emotionally to what's going on. So that's why for so many of us, it usually takes some quiet time, what I'll call quiet time. You have to step away from the situation and you have to try to say, why am I feeling anxious? What's really the cause of my anxiousness? And you have to have some real honest heart-to-heart conversations with yourself
Right.
and with those that are part of your support team.
Hmm.
See, everybody who's part of your support team may not be part of the support team for your loved one or even your kiddos, but
Correct.
they're your support team.
Yeah.
And they can be that sounding board and provide some more balance. And if someone in your support team tends to panic and go into, oh my gosh, you're right. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
eliminate that person from your support team. I'm sorry. You don't need
Fire
any
them.
more. Yeah. Yeah. Tell them thank you very much.
Right.
No
Right.
more caffeine for you. And I'll handle this. It's just you need people who are calm, will help calm you down.
Yeah.
They're going to help pull you out of all that emotional reaction, make you a little more objective
Hmm.
about how you're viewing the situation so you can truly weigh what's the issues that we're trying to address.
So you just actually answered one of my questions,
Oh,
which is great. Because overwhelm is just,
yeah.
it's a natural thing because you've got it's emotional.
Yeah.
And so um I like when you say, and I think people need to hear this more, is even I need a support team. you
Mhm.
know, it's
Yeah.
not just mom or dad, but even who are my people? Who's my little
Yep.
village for
Yep.
me? And I think people might tend to think that that's, selfish, like it's not about you. But if I'm the one who's, providing the care and, doing
It
all
is
that,
about you. Yeah.
yeah, it is about me. So
Yeah.
that's great. I want to keep note of the time. I think let's one of the I guess, and I think you touched on this too, but are there like common mistakes that you see your families making other than, so you've covered a lot of that from the, you know, jumping in and taking over and making the decisions for them and stuff. But what about like kind of from the medical side of things? Do you
Mhm.
see what mistakes do you see families kind of automatically flowing into that
Mhm.
maybe if they took that step back and really thought about it, maybe bigger picture?
Mhm.
What do you see out there?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yes. There are some common threads or themes that I've seen over the years. Usually it's because people haven't planned. They
Oh,
haven't had the conversation.
okay.
They haven't in in a calm period
Yeah.
without any crises
Mm,
facing you, right? They really know very little about mom and dad's medical condition, the meds they're on, who their doctors are, who their friends are, what their wishes might be for different things.
mhm,
And that that group that hasn't had any of those conversations, that's the group I get most concerned about. And that's the group where I see immediate panic
mhm.
and sort of chaos, the feeling of
Yeah.
chaos
Yeah.
setting in, right? Because you're up against, they're feeling up against the clock.
Right.
A
Like we got to
crisis has
catch up.
happened. We got
Okay.
to catch up and we got to deal with it,
Yeah.
and we got to deal with it now.
Hmm.
So I often tell people step back, take a breath,
Hmm.
step back, take a breath, really consider what is the real issue. Well, my mom just called. She fell. We think she's broken a hip. She's in the ER. What do I do now? What do I do now? And
Hmm.
it's like, breathe,
Hmm.
because you just hear the tension. You hear it. And why do I say that? I know that sounds maybe like a stupid thing to say. Yeah, because I've been there. So I can point the finger at me. Um, but you have to realize that intellectually, even how you're thinking about a problem or an issue you're facing
Hmm.
gets impacted by that immediate emotional reaction. If
Oh,
you immediately go into panic mode or chaos or, oh my gosh, it, it impacts the way you're going to think through
hmm.
what the current issue is. And it's like suddenly you're bringing everything, into this one issue.
Right.
And it's like, step back, breathe. Now let's look at the facts. Let's look at the details of things. Okay. Okay. So mom fell. Where did mom fall? Oh, she was at home. Okay, great. How did she get then to the hospital? Who called? Well, her neighbor came over and found her. Great. Thank God for that neighbor, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so mom's in what hospital? Okay. Are you able to go yourself, and be there in the emergency room? And then I sort of talk them through, what do you need to be thinking about before you can just jump in the car and go to the emergency room,
Okay.
right? So you slow it down. You
Hmm.
slow down the pace of stuff and you begin to look at the facts
Okay.
of situations. And though that particularly arises, doesn't matter if you live 5 minutes from mom or dad or if you're 3,000 miles away.
Right.
You know
Right.
exactly when you talk to someone
Mhm.
whether they've already had some pre-planning conversations with their loved one. And I think the further away that you are and you're living your own life, you get very caught up in your own life, right?
Right.
it, it's even more difficult sometimes to stop and say, hey, mom, dad, they're 3,000 miles away.
Right.
If an emergency happened, I have not a clue. I have
What?
not
Yeah.
a clue.
Yeah.
So as much as possible, you don't want to find yourself in that kind of position.
Hmm.
Now, granted, your parents and loved ones, grandparents, whatever, may be very secretive. Many of them are. I totally get it. I understand. My children would claim that I'm a little too secretive.
Right. Guilty.
Anyway, yeah, guilty again. I never tell my clients anything that I don't point all the fingers back at me and say, this is,
Right.
this is what I'm saying this. Anyway, um, but if you can at least have the conversation with your loved one and just say, hey, look, I want you to know, number one, I'm your number one fan.
Hmm.
I'm your number one go-to person. I will be there. You need anything, I want to be there. But all of a sudden I got to thinking, you know what? If I got a call from the hospital and you were in the ER for some reason,
Right.
um, I know nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So can you at least give me some feel? Can we at least share some information? And here's the big thing. Remember, they're still your parent. They're still the adult. Have you shared any of your details with them? So it becomes very receptive. I'm sorry,
Reciprocal.
thank you. Speech impediment. I know the
Yeah.
word, I can't get it out. If you're willing to share just some basic information with them,
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
will be much more open and likely to share their information with you.
Okay.
So it comes back to ensuring that your loved one understands what your motivation and intent is.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, I deal with the older family member, and they're very much so afraid of what the motivation or intention is of their
Okay.
kid or kids,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And again, remember, they see each of those children at about 10 to 12 years of age, all
Mm.
those disputes and debates that you've had as teenagers, they really haven't forgotten them. They're all in somewhere. And then as you've grown into adulthood, have they also seen you debate each other or
Mm.
get along with each other? So and all of that's implanted in them.
Hmm.
And so if you're, as I often say, the family caregiver rises to the top like cream. Now that's an old farmhouse expression. But for those of us who grew up in dairy farms, you'd put the cream into the thing in the milk house, and it would have to have that stirring rod stirring it all the time.
Hmm.
Otherwise, if it just sat, the cream, all that
Right.
cream in that milk would rise to the top. Well, I often say the family caregiver is like that cream that rose to the top. And you might be that key person that becomes the sort of focal point for all the family caregiving. And that then becomes, excuse me, part of, excuse, part of the conversation you're having with your loved one, and say, hey, I've talked to my brother, I've talked to my sister, I've at least let them know that I wanted to call you and have a conversation with you
Hmm.
about just a couple key things, just so I'm not getting an emergency phone call and then really don't know, do I jump on a plane? Do I not jump on a
Right.
plane? Do I come over? Do I not come over? Where do I go even after I get to your place? And I mean,
Yeah.
all those kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
So that that I think is probably the most critical piece. Have the conversations before any crisis hits. Get enough stuff shared such that everybody's clear about intention.
Yeah.
And then when the crisis does hit, then you move into action,
Hmm.
based on what the situation is and the information that you do have in hand. And
Hmm.
if you need to gather more information, that's cool. That's fine.
Yeah.
But at least you've got that initial piece that isn't going to leave you as the caregiver feeling like all the eggs suddenly went up in the air and they're splatting all over the place and you don't know which one to try to catch,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
That's, I can see that just with so many people, even in my own family, because um, it's not a conversation we want to have,
Right.
and the grandparents in my community, a good majority of them are long distance
Mm-hmm.
kids.
Like me.
Yeah, yeah, they're long
Yeah.
distance. So to kind of piggyback on that, starting the conversation when things are calm and good and everybody's happy. How would give me a couple examples of how you would start to frame that initial conversation? Because I know you can, it could immediately put up a wall of resistance. Like, why are you even asking me these questions? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, why do you
Mm-hmm.
need to know? Type of thing. So
Right.
how do you start that conversation so it's more of an open, I just want the information in the event of, as opposed
Mm-hmm.
to tell me everything that you're taking and stuff like that.
Right. Right. Well, number one, your point that you just made. Again, you don't go into the conversation looking at the worst case scenario.
Right.
You step into the conversation gently and you do it easy peasy. You're looking at the most easy peasy piece, right?
Okay.
And and it's like again, I encourage my caregivers and younger family members to share information first
Okay. Okay.
and to just say, hey, we just updated our estate plan. We just updated our wills. We just updated our power of attorneys, which everybody needs to do at least every couple of years. You need to be looking and making sure they're still doing what you want them to do. Um, and again, you do that. You take self-responsibility and accountability for doing that for yourself.
Yeah.
And then you can go to your older family member and say, hey, you know what I realized? If anything ever happened to me, and God forbid you got a phone call from my neighbor or my BFF,
Hmm.
and you heard that something had happened to me, uh, I realized I want you to have enough information, at least to know which BFF might be calling you, you
Right.
know, where I might go for medical care,
Mm.
and just so you know where paperwork is in my home.
Right.
And I'm happy to send you a copy of my power of attorneys if you'd like to have copies, particularly if you've named them. I mean, some of my caregivers who are 65 or so, they still have the 80-year-old named in their documents. And
Oh.
that's real important. That's why every couple of years you need to be reviewing all of that.
Hmm.
Um, so and let me say one other thing before I forget, because I will forget. Because we have so many blended families these days,
Hmm.
it is so important for, again, the caregiver. If you're part of a blended family situation, you want to make it very clear that your quote unquote side of the family has access to information, to the grandkids, to whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes families forget, to
Right.
have that kind of conversation
Right.
because that can be a real touchy conversation. You want to talk about talking to the older ones. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm part of a blended family and there's now
Right.
7 kids and 3 are from this side and 3 are from my side, and so if you've got that kind of conversation going on in your own life, you're going to find that going forth and having a conversation with your aging loved one about what you've put in place,
Right. Yeah.
because you don't want and you can just say, I don't want you to panic
Hmm.
and I don't want you to feel like you don't know anything at all,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And so you share that. And then I think you can bridge that conversation to say, I realized through all this conversation and discussion and everything I've been doing, I am so far away from you. And if I got a call from a hospital or your neighbor or something, I, I would know nothing.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even know what you want me to do, kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
here's from my perspective, here's what would help me. Okay, you talk about you, what would help you?
Yeah.
And then you'd have to say, uh, how's that sound? I mean, does that sort of make sense to
Hmm.
you?
Hmm.
And then have that dialogue, back and forth. You got to be willing to dialogue.
Yeah.
You got to be willing to talk
Right.
without bringing all the emotion into it. This is not a time to get all caught up emotionally. You're
Right.
you're really just trying to say life is complex.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I wish we did live right across the garden from each other, on the farm, but we don't live like that anymore.
Yeah.
And life is much more complex than when I
Right.
grew up on the farm and we were just getting our vegetables, out of the garden in between our 2 houses. Um, and so you just want to keep it not at the hot
Right.
red light blaring level.
Yes.
You're just down here. Everything's cool,
Yeah.
everything's calm, everything's fine.
Yeah.
But you're just recognizing that, gosh darn, I never talked to you about any of this. So let
Right.
me share
Right.
some of what, I've done. And I'm sharing it with you, and I'm going to share it with my sis or my
Right.
brother, right? So it's not just so you're forming again. Think always in team mode. You're in
That's
team mode.
okay. Yeah.
And the team needs to know. The team needs to be on the same page. The team needs to have enough information that the team can come alongside you, your loved one, your 5-year-old,
Yeah.
and be there to truly help and support. Does that make sense?
Total sense. Total sense.
Hard to do though at times because
Yeah.
most of us in our families don't go to that level of conversation ever about anything. We
Yeah.
would much rather argue about about the politics, about
Oh my
about the
goodness.
tea.
Well, and it's, I think because, as you know, it just automatically sparks that emotion, So having that conversation with like my son, you know, I I am now going to have that conversation, but not as, just as, hey, I'm sharing my information and stuff. Not that anything's going on or, I'm not worried about anything. Just you need to, I want you to know.
Want you
Yeah.
know, or at least you want them to know where the file is in the
Right.
office, in your home, or whatever, such
Yeah.
that here's the emergency file,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
You don't
Something
have to look at
happens.
it.
Yeah, you don't have to look at it. If you want to look at it, you can.
Yeah.
But because it's back to remember the days when there was a big push to make sure that we hung on our refrigerator doors in a red package or envelope or something any information that first responders might
Right.
need if 911 was called and
Yeah.
they came into our home. And in that red envelope on the side of the fridge or tucked in the back of the fridge on a shelf would be, the current medication list,
Mhm.
the doctor's name, if there's a power of attorney for healthcare,
Right.
that would be there. I mean, critical stuff that first responders are always needing to gather. And
Mhm.
it's a photo ID. Why do they need a photo ID? Well, they're confirming who you are. They're finding the date of your birth, right? And they're confirming addresses. So a little bit of data there.
Yeah.
And then your healthcare card, your insurance card.
Yeah.
And they need that because they fill that information in, and it's information that if you have to be transported, it's information that they can pass on to the emergency room or the healthcare provider,
Mhm.
such that, that piece of getting you care, appropriate care and treatment
Right.
is handled. They've already got it, kind of thing. So it's one of the things that I still do with all of my clients that I work with.
Okay.
I always say, where's your emergency information?
Yeah.
Just put it, well, I'll go buy you a little red plastic envelope,
Leave or
you
something.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Let me get you a red envelope and happy Valentine's Day. But no, this is really for, first responders.
Emergency.
Yeah, yeah. And so it just and then within that information as well, you can provide the first responders with those one or two key people that
Hmm.
you want to have contacted
Right.
because that often gets asked too when you get into an emergency room.
Right.
Who do you want us to call or who can we talk to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We live by privacy laws these days, the
Right.
good old, as I call it, the HIPAA law. Don't even ask me what that anymore acronym stands for, but it's all about health insurance, privacy, protection, whatever. Anyway, and so we all live by HIPAA. And
Hmm.
so in the emergency room, they need to come to understand who you even want to take a call from,
Right.
as
Right.
well as who can they talk to.
Yeah.
And family members get very upset with emergency room staff people all the time.
I
And
bet.
it's just like, you're not on their record.
Right.
You may be the eldest son. That's great.
Yeah.
I don't
It's
know who
so,
you are. You're just a voice over the phone,
yeah. Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Hmm.
You just don't want your loved ones to be faced with that. So the
Right.
more that you can have that information down and have it in a safe place at home,
Yeah.
as well as on your refrigerator, and just,
Yeah.
have yourself in good order, and then it's easier to have the conversation
Right.
with anyone in your life who is typically 18 years of old and older. Most people, most states, I should say, most states, I think, it's 18 years of age where you become an adult legally, what they consider you to be an adult. And I
Right.
always tell everybody, you hit 18, you need your own documents, you need your own information, basic things
Right.
done,
Right.
because you're now an adult.
Yeah.
And yeah, I may be your mama, but that doesn't mean anybody's going to tell me much.
Right. Yeah. No, it's totally true. That's totally true. Well, I want to respect your time. This has been amazing. Thank you so much. If people see this, we're going to share it and see it on replay. and
Sure.
want to, know more or understand how they can contact you, get your services and resources, how can people get a hold of you? What should they
Sure.
do?
Sure. Probably the best way actually is through my school community group.
Okay.
You and I are connected between both of our community groups, which is pretty cool. And so they can connect with me on Skool
Okay.
at the Family Care Compass. The word "the" is very important on that, the Family Care Compass. And join that group. It's free to join right now. There are a couple other options in terms of actual membership as I'm building the group, and I want to be able to provide value to
Mhm.
those folks who do become part of paid membership. So that's one place.
Okay.
The other place is you will find me on my website under my business name, vaccaassociates.com. Vacca, which is my last name, and maybe we can drop the links in at the end of the video, vaccaassociates.com. And there you'll find all sorts of contact information about me as well, to be able to reach out to me. I'm on Facebook under Vacca Associates as well, because that's been my long time DBA, doing business as name. So there's a number of different ways for folks to reach out. Because I am trying to really build this community through Skool, which is just so fun.
Oh, perfect.
I think it's such a fun thing to have available to us. I did want to offer up to folks who might be watching this, even on replay,
Hmm.
that if you join as a premium member, which is $47 a month,
Hmm.
you'll get everything that is the freebie part. But what I thought I would do is offer an hour-long one-on-one as a bonus to anybody who joins at that premium level. And then I'm going to start doing a once a month coffee time with my premium members.
Nice.
Yeah, so we can just sit like this and grab a cup of coffee or tea or a glass of water
Yeah.
and just sit and talk.
Okay.
A lot of times just bouncing ideas back and forth amongst people becomes very, very helpful.
Right. Right. Or sharing, what one is currently going through, what's
Right.
going on right now type of thing. That's amazing. This has been very valuable. And I thank you for being my very first expert guest speaker. Um, if you're watching this on replay, this is, my series I'm starting through Grandparents Corner, again, on the Skool platform. If you'd like to join, it's free. Um, but just the wealth of knowledge that you brought and piqued just my mind on, you know, some of the next steps I need to take, and how I can approach it. And one of the big things that stood out to me was how I need to make sure I have my own team, my own little village, for me, um, to help me get through whatever's coming my way, really. So,
Right. That's right.
so I
That's right.
appreciate your time. I appreciate your expertise. This was a great conversation, and I
Oh,
really,
thank
I really
you.
enjoyed it. So
I did too. I
great.
did too. Thanks,
And
Anna, so
maybe
much.
we'll do it again.
Maybe there's probably lots more to talk about, huh?
Yeah, exactly. You picked a lot of questions and stuff, so that'll be great. All right. Well, thank you, Marcia. I'm going to stop the
Thank
recording
you.
now.